The Congressional Black Caucus is an organization made up of all the African American members of the United States Congress. The CBC includes the Africa Task Force that works to improve financial and cultural exchange between the United States and Africa. My colleague, Paul Sisco, has more.
United States Representative Gregory W. Meeks is a senior member of the House Foreign Relations Committee and co-chairperson of the Congressional Black Caucus's Africa Task Force. Friday, he's hosting an event in New York City called Engaging Wall Street on Power Africa. The networking event is fostering Power Africa business opportunities. President Barack Obama announced the $7 billion Power Africa initiative last year. Another $9 billion in initial commitments is coming from private sector partners.
Access to electricity is fundamental to opportunity in this age. It's the light that children study by, the energy that allows an idea to be transformed into a real business. It's the lifeline for families to meet their most basic needs. And it's the connection that's needed to plug Africa into the grid of the global economy. You've got to have power.
Last week in Addis Ababa, African energy ministers met with energy stakeholders from the United States. They heard from U.S. Secretary of Energy Ernest Moniz.
I'm very pleased to announce a new U.S. government Power Africa initiative, or sub-initiative, called Beyond the Grid.
This part of President Obama's Power Plan for Africa uses private sector partnerships to establish small-scale energy projects with another $1 billion in investments. Very few people have access to electricity in sub-Saharan Africa. Ethiopian Prime Minister Desalegn Haile Mariam.
Until recently, the private sector has not shown much interest to invest in power sector in Africa due to its long return period. We, the African governments, also have not created the necessary environment to ease the risk associated with long-term investment.
Darius Mans is president of AfriCare, a nonprofit group committed to building sustainable, healthy, and productive communities.
Power Africa is hugely important. Power is the binding constraint to Africa sustaining its growth and prosperity. We see it in communities across the continent. Not having access to electricity is a problem that drives deforestation in Africa. Women have to go out and collect firewood for energy. It takes hours when they could be putting that time into productive activities at home and generating incomes. Young people who are unable to study at night because they don't have access to electricity. Healthcare, we see it in the work that we do. Having access to medicine stored at the proper temperature requires electricity. So it's the big challenge, and I salute the President for focusing on this agenda and getting everybody focused, not just what the government can do, the U.S. government, but also African governments and, very importantly, the private sector.
AfriCare often works with members of the Congressional Black Caucus to bring Africa and the United States closer.
On power, you may know some members of the Congressional Black Caucus have been co-sponsors of the Electricity Act that is hopefully going to find its way to the President's desk for signature. Just getting that bipartisan support for Africa, for power in particular. Congressional Black Caucus has played a huge role.
6 countries have been selected to participate in the first phase of the Power Africa initiative: Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana, Liberia, and Nigeria. The Power Africa initiative aims to install 10,000 megawatts of newly generated electric power, to bring electric power to 20 million new customers, and to improve electric reliability across the continent. Paul Sisco, VOA News.
Thanks, Paul, for that report.